This is a video from section 3.5. We're going to look at problem 49. Find an equation of the tangent line to the hyperbola x squared over a squared minus y squared over b squared equals 1 at the point x naught, y naught. Now, to find the equation of the tangent line, we need to first start off by finding the slope of the tangent line to the hyperbola at the point x naught, y naught. How do we find the slope of the tangent line? We need to first start off by finding dy dx. Once we find dy dx, we're going to evaluate it at the point x naught, y naught. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with x squared over a squared minus y squared over b squared equals 1. And we're going to differentiate both sides of this equation with respect to x. Now, to differentiate x squared with respect to x, we're going to use the power rule, and we get 2x. Remember that a is constant, so the derivative of x squared over a squared with respect to x is 2x over a squared. The derivative of y squared with respect to x is 2y dy dx. So the derivative of y squared over b squared with respect to x is 2y over b squared dy dx. That's chain rule. So we get 2x over a squared minus 2y over b squared dy dx equals, and then the derivative of 1 with respect to x is just 0. Now, we want to solve for dy dx. So I'm going to move this second term here over to the other side. And so 2x over a squared is the same as 2y over b squared dy dx. And we're just switching places here. 2y over b squared dy dx is the same as 2x over a squared. And solving for dy dx, I'm going to multiply both sides of the equation by b squared over 2y. And then what we end up getting is dy dx is xb squared over ya squared. Now what we want to do is we want to evaluate dy dx at the point x naught, y naught. And so we end up getting x naught b squared divided by y naught a squared. Now, we're given slope x naught b squared over y naught a squared and point x naught, y naught. So the tangent line is, using the point slope form, is y minus y sub 1 is equal to m times x minus x sub 1. So we're going to replace m with x naught b squared over y naught a squared. We're going to replace x sub 1 with x sub 0. That's the specific point on the line that we're dealing with. And we're going to replace y sub 1 with y sub 0. So y minus y sub 0 is the same as x naught b squared over y naught a squared times x minus x sub 0. Now I'm going to distribute the slope inside. And so on the last line, we end up getting y minus y sub 0 is the same as x naught b squared over y naught a squared times x minus x naught b squared over y naught a squared. And I just rewrote that up here. And so we end up getting y minus y naught is the same as x naught b squared over y naught a squared times x minus x naught b squared over y naught a squared. Now, I'm going to collect the constants together and then the variable terms together. So, in other words, on this line here, I get x naught b squared over y naught a squared minus y naught is the same as x naught b squared over y naught a squared times x minus y. So notice how we have constant terms on the left, variable terms on the right. Now, to go from the second line to the third line, what I first did was I multiplied both sides by y naught a squared. And my whole goal in doing so is to clear the fraction. And so what we end up getting on the third line is x naught b squared minus y naught a squared is the same as x naught b squared times x minus y times y naught times a squared. And then from there, I divide both sides by a squared b squared. And so what is my goal? My goal is I want to match the equation of the tangent line to what the book had, okay? And by dividing both sides by a squared b squared, I get the following. I get x naught b squared divided by a squared b squared. I'm just splitting the fraction. Minus y naught a squared over a squared b squared is the same as x naught b squared times x divided by a squared b squared minus y naught a squared times y divided by a squared b squared. So notice how the b squareds in the first term cancel, a squareds in the second term cancel, b squareds cancel over here, and a squareds cancel over here. And so I get x naught over a squared minus y naught over b squared is the same as x naught times x divided by a squared minus y naught times y divided by b squared. But x naught, y naught is a point on the hyperbola. And what that tells me is that x naught over a squared minus y naught over b squared has to be 1. There's no choice. And so, therefore, x naught times x over a squared minus y naught times y over b squared is the same as 1. That's the tangent line. And that'll conclude this video for section 3.5, where we looked at problem 49. Thank you.